Human raises abandoned alien predator cub that was the Empress's lost pet. The storm screamed like a living thing the night Marcus Reed found the creature, huddled in the mud, its golden eyes burning with something too sharp to be animal, too wild to be human. It was wounded, abandoned, and when it spoke, its voice wasn't just words. It was a plea, a secret, a warning. Marcus knew he should have walked away, but as the rain lashed his face and the thing's claws curled weakly around his sleeve, he did the one thing that would change everything. He took it home. Now, with an alien empress hunting them and a military force on their heels, Marcus is about to learn the truth. Some bonds are stronger than blood, and some monsters, they make the best family. Chapter 1. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the sleepy town of Briarwood, with a scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the crisp autumn air. The cobblestone streets were just beginning to stir as shopkeepers rolled out their awnings and children scampered to school. Near the edge of town, a young woman with fiery red hair and a determined glint in her eye marched toward the local blacksmith's forge, her boots kicking up tiny clouds of dust. "Elias, you better not have sold my order to someone else again," she called out, pushing open the creaky wooden door. The heat from the furnace hit her like a wall, and she wiped her brow with a grumble. The burly blacksmith looked up from his anvil, a smirk playing on his lips. "Ah, Lyra, always so dramatic. Maybe if you paid up front like everyone else, I wouldn't have to pawn your swords off to higher bidders." Lyra crossed her arms. "I told you I'd pay you after the bounty. And I did, didn't I?" Elias chuckled, wiping his soot-streaked hands on his apron. But only after I threatened to melt the thing down for scrap." He reached under the counter and slid a gleaming long sword toward her. "Here, sharpened it myself. Should cleave through bone like butter." She grabbed the hilt, testing its weight with a practiced swing. The blade hummed through the air, and she grinned. "Now that's what I call service." "Service?" Elias snorted. "More like charity. You're lucky I tolerate your antics, girl." Before Lyra could retort, the door burst open, and a breathless boy stumbled inside, his face flushed. "Lyra, you've got to come quick. It's the mayor. He's called a town meeting." She arched an eyebrow. "What's old man Holloway want now? Another tax increase?" The boy shook his head, eyes wide. "No, it's worse. They say the Shadowfen marsh is spreading, and something's been snatching livestock. People are saying it's the Hollow Man." A hush fell over the forge. Elias's smirk vanished, and Lyra's grip tightened on her sword. "The Hollow Man? That's just a fireside tale to scare kids." "Tell that to the Wilsons," the boy insisted. "Their entire flock's gone. Just poof. No tracks, no blood, nothing." Lyra exchanged a glance with Elias, whose usual bravado had faded. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" she asked. He sighed. "That you're about to stick your nose where it doesn't belong?" "Damn right." She sheathed her sword and tossed a small pouch of coins onto the counter. "For your trouble. And don't worry, if the Hollow Man's real, I'll bring back his head as a trophy." Elias groaned. "Why do I even bother?" Lyra winked as she strode toward the door. "Because you'd miss me otherwise." Outside, the town square was already filling with murmuring villagers, their faces etched with fear. Mayor Holloway stood on the wooden podium, his usual pompous air replaced by grim urgency. Lyra pushed through the crowd, her mind racing. If there were danger and coin to be made, she'd be the first to claim it. The game was on. Chapter 2. The creature, now wrapped in Marcus's jacket, lay curled on his kitchen table, its breathing shallow but steady. The storm still raged outside, rattling the windows as Marcus carefully dabbed at the gashes along its side with a damp cloth. The wounds weren't deep, but the blood was strange, thick and iridescent, shimmering under the dim kitchen light like oil on water. "You're a long way from home, aren't you?" Marcus muttered, more to himself than the creature. The thing blinked up at him, its golden eyes reflecting the light like a cat's. Then, to Marcus's shock, its throat vibrated with a sound that wasn't quite a growl, more like a broken whisper. "Ich-ich-ich-ohm." Marcus froze. "Did you just—" The creature's nostrils flared, its gaze locked onto his. "Ich-ich-ich-ohm. Holy hell. Marcus took a step back, his pulse kicking up. "You can talk." The creature didn't respond, but its tail twitched, the spiked tip curling slightly, almost like a question. A sharp crackle from the radio on the counter made them both jump. "Reed, you there?" Commander Lyra Vasquez's voice was all business, sharp as a blade. Marcus exhaled, forcing his voice steady as he grabbed the radio. "Yeah, what's up, Commander?" "We've got a breach. Something escaped containment earlier tonight. If you see anything unusual..." Marcus's eyes flicked to the creature. It was watching him, ears pricked forward as if it understood every word. "Call it in immediately." "Understood. Got it." Marcus lied, thumbing the radio off before she could say more. The creature let out a low, almost approving rumble. "Oh, don't look so smug," Marcus grumbled, running a hand through his damp hair. "You're gonna get me court-martialed." The creature tilted its head, then, in a movement so fast Marcus barely registered it, lunged for the bowl of water he'd set nearby. It lapped at it greedily, droplets splashing onto the table. Marcus sighed. "Guess you're sticking around, huh?" The creature paused mid-drink, water dripping from its jaws. Then, with deliberate slowness, it nudged the bowl toward him with its snout. Marcus blinked. "You want me to have some?" The creature made a sound that might have been a chuckle, if something with that many teeth could laugh. "All right, fine. You're weirdly polite for a monster." He reached for the bowl, but the creature suddenly stiffened, its ears swiveling toward the window. Marcus followed its gaze. Outside, through the rain-streaked glass, a shadow moved. Too large to be a deer, too deliberate to be the wind. "Someone's out there," he whispered. The creature's lips peeled back in a silent snarl, its claws digging into the wood. Marcus grabbed his shotgun from the rack, heart pounding. "Guess we're doing this." The creature looked at him, then at the door, its tail lashing once. "Stay behind me," Marcus ordered. It bared its teeth, not at him, but at the night beyond the door. "Or don't. Whatever." And with that, he yanked the door open, stepping into the storm. Chapter 3. The mist clung to the trees like a shroud as Lyra picked her way through Shadowfen Marsh, her boots sinking into the damp earth with each step. The air smelled of rotting leaves and something metallic, something wrong. Beside her, Kale, the wiry tracker she'd reluctantly teamed up with, crouched to examine a broken branch. "Definitely not an animal," he muttered, running a finger along the splintered wood. "Too clean. Something with hands did this." Lyra rolled her eyes. "Brilliant deduction. Next, you'll tell me the sky is blue." Kale shot her a glare. "You're welcome to track it yourself, Red." "Oh wait, you couldn't find your arse with both hands and a map." She smirked. "At least my arse isn't as bony as yours." I'd hear it clattering from a mile away. A sudden rustle in the reeds cut their banter short. Both froze their hands on their weapons. The marsh fell eerily silent. No birds, no insects, just a faint drip of water. Then a low, guttural growl rippled through the air. "Told you it wasn't just a story," Kale whispered. Lyra unsheathed her sword, the blade glinting dully in the fog. "Shut up and get ready." The creature emerged in a blur of matted fur and two long limbs, its yellow eyes locking onto them with unnatural hunger. It moved like a man, but hunched like a beast, its fingers ending in jagged claws. "Well," Lyra said, cracking her neck, "you're uglier than I expected." It lunged. She sidestepped, slicing upward, but the thing twisted midair, avoiding the blow. Kale's dagger flashed, sinking into its shoulder, only for the beast to barely flinch. "Okay," Kale panted, "maybe stabbing it isn't the play." Lyra ducked as a claw swiped at her head. "Got any bright ideas, genius?" "Fire." He tossed her a small vial from his belt. "Light it and throw." She caught it, struck her flint against the steel of her sword, and hurled the vial at the creature's feet. The explosion of flames sent it screeching back, its fur catching like kindling. The stench of burning flesh filled the air as it writhed, then collapsed into the muck. For a long moment, neither spoke, their breaths heavy. Then Kale nudged the charred corpse with his boot. "So, not the Hollow Man, then?" Lyra wiped her blade clean. "No, but whatever this is, it's connected." She knelt, prying something from the creature's grip. A tattered scrap of cloth with a familiar insignia. The mayor's crest. Kale whistled low. That's not good. Lyra's jaw tightened. Holloway's hiding something. And we're gonna find out what. Somewhere in the distance, a second howl echoed through the marsh. Kale groaned. Or we could run. Running's good. Lyra was already moving forward. Come on, coward. Adventure awaits. He scrambled after her. I hate you so much. She grinned. Liar. The mist swallowed them whole as they pressed deeper into the marsh, the truth lurking just beyond sight. Chapter. For the forest swallowed them whole, the trees pressing in like silent sentinels as Marcus and Kovu moved through the undergrowth. The rain had stopped, but the air hung thick with moisture, every breath tasting of damp earth and pine. Marcus's boots sank into the mud with each step, his shotgun gripped tight, while Kova moved ahead like a shadow, fluid, silent, his scales blending into the darkness. You sure you know where we're going? Marcus whispered, his voice barely louder than the rustle of leaves. Kova didn't answer at first. His ears twitched, scanning the forest for sounds Marcus couldn't hear. Then, without turning, he murmured, safe place. Old den. Your den. Kovu's tail flicked, a gesture Marcus had come to recognize as hesitation. Not mine. Before me. Marcus frowned. Before? You mean there were others like you? Kovu's claws flexed into the dirt. Gone now. The weight of those words settled between them. Marcus opened his mouth to ask more, but a sudden snap of branches cut him off. Both froze. Kovu's body coiled, his muscles taut as wire. They're here. Marcus raised his shotgun, scanning the trees. How many? Enough. A figure stepped into view. Commander Lyra Vasquez, flanked by 4 soldiers in tactical gear, their rifles trained on them. Her expression was unreadable, but her grip on her weapon was steady. Read, she said, her voice cool. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Marcus kept his finger near the trigger. Funny, I was just thinking the same about you. Lyra's jaw tightened. That creature is classified. Hand it over, and we can forget this ever happened. Koval let out a low growl, his claws digging deeper into the earth. Marcus didn't lower his gun. You've been working with her, haven't you? That Empress freak. Lyra's eyes flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. You don't understand what's at stake, she said, her voice dropping. That thing isn't a pet. It's a weapon. Marcus scoffed. Yeah? Then why's he the one acting more human than you? One of the soldiers shifted, his grip tightening on his rifle. Commander, orders? Lira ehalit sharply. Take them. Alive if possible. Kova didn't wait. He lunged with a blur of black scales and teeth, slamming into the nearest soldier before the man could react. The others opened fire, but Kova was already moving, dodging bullets with terrifying precision. Marcus ducked behind a tree, shotgun barking as he returned fire. Kovu, don't kill them. Kovu snarled as he pinned a soldier, his claws at the man's throat. Why not? Because we're not monsters. For a heartbeat, Kova hesitated. Then, with a frustrated growl, he knocked the soldier unconscious instead. Lyra cursed, firing a shot that grazed Marcus's arm. He hissed, but didn't falter. Last chance, Lyra, he shouted. Stand down. She didn't. Kovu moved like lightning, disarming her in one fluid motion. The gun clattered to the ground, and Lyra stumbled back, her eyes wide. You're making a mistake, she spat. Marcus stepped forward, his voice low. No, you did. A rustle in the trees made them all turn. Empress Nixera stood there, her silver suit gleaming under the moonlight, her expression icy. Enough games, she said, her voice like a blade. You've run far enough. Kovu bared his teeth, his growl vibrating the air. Marcus tightened his grip on his shotgun. The real fight was about to begin. Chapter 5. The ancient stone door groaned as Lyra and Kale pushed it open, revealing a cavern bathed in eerie blue light. Strange symbols pulsed along the walls, casting shifting shadows that seemed to whisper as they moved. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something sharper, like lightning before storm. Kale wiped the sweat from his brow, his usual smirk absent. This feels wrong. Like we're not supposed to be here. Lyra adjusted her grip on her sword, the weight of it the only comfort in this unnatural place. Since when do you care about supposed to? You stole the mayor's favorite horse last summer. That was for a bet. This is, he gestured wildly at the cavern, actually cursed ruins, Red. Before she could retort, a voice slithered through the darkness, smooth as oil. The intruders finally arrive. A figure stepped into the light, tall, cloaked, his face hidden beneath a hood. But his hands, they were wrong. Too long, too pale, fingers twitching like spiders testing their webs. Lyra's blood turned to ice. Holloway. The mayor chuckled, pulling back his hood to reveal hollow eyes and a smile that stretched too wide. Not quite. Though he was useful, a willing vessel, once I hollowed him out. Kel took a step back, dagger raised. You're the Hollow Man. The creature sighed, as if disappointed. A name given by fearful peasants. I am far more. His form flickered, shadows writhing around him. I am hungry. I am the dark between stars. Lyra spat on the ground. You're about to be a corpse. She lunged, sword flashing, but the Hollow Man moved faster. A blur of darkness, his hand snapping out to catch her wrist. Pain seared up her arm as his fingers burned like frostbite. Persistent little thing, he mused, tilting his head. I'll enjoy unraveling you. Kale's dagger sank into the Hollow Man's side, or should have. The blade passed through him like mist, and the creature backhanded him without even looking. Kale hit the ground hard, gasping. Lyra twisted free, her breath ragged. Okay, stabbing's not working. Kale coughed, rolling to his feet. You think? The Hollow Man advanced, his laughter echoing off the walls. Run. It's more entertaining when they run. Lyra's mind raced. The symbols on the walls, they weren't just decoration. They were a ward, a cage, and the Hollow Man hadn't stepped beyond the circle of blue light. She grabbed Kale's arm, yanking him toward the cavern's edge. The markings, they're keeping him here. The Hollow Man's smile faltered. Clever girl, but it won't save you. Kale wiped blood from his lip, grinning despite everything. Got a plan, or are we just admiring the decor? Lyra's eyes locked onto a crumbling section of the wall where the symbols had faded. We break the circle, then we see how mortal he really is. The Hollow Man's shriek of rage shook the cavern as they charged. Chapter 6. The battlefield froze in an eerie silence as Nyxora's power crackled through the air like static before a storm. Marcus's breath came in ragged gasps, his shotgun now useless against the Empress's unnatural abilities. Kovu stood between them, his scales bristling, caught between two worlds. Nyxora extended a hand, her voice softening in a way that made Marcus's skin crawl. You remember now, don't you? The stars we ruled, the hunt we shared. Kovu's claws flexed, his tail lashing once. I remember shadows, fire. Yes, Nyxora murmured, stepping closer. You were meant to be my heir, my legacy. Marcus wiped the blood from his lip, forcing himself upright. He's not some trophy for you to reclaim, lady. You left him to die. Nyxora's eyes flashed. I lost him. There's a difference. Kovu turned to Marcus, his golden eyes searching. You gave me a name, a home. Marcus swallowed hard. Yeah, well, someone had to. A bitter smile tugged at Kovu's muzzle. Then he faced Nyxora again, his voice steady. You want me to choose? The Empress tilted her head. There is no choice. You're mine by blood. Wrong. Kovu's growl deepened. Blood doesn't make a family. This does. He gestured to Marcus, then to the fallen soldiers, humans who had hunted him, yet whose lives he'd spared. Nyxora's face darkened. Sentiment is weakness. No, Kova snapped. It's what you never understood. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Nyxora's perfect features. You would throw away eternity for this? She gestured dismissively at Marcus. Kova didn't hesitate. I choose him. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then Nyxora's composure shattered. Then you will both die. Her hand shot out, energy crackling like lightning, but Kova was faster. He lunged, not at her, but into the blast. Kovu. Marcus roared. The energy warped, swirling around Kovu's body like a vortex. His scales began to glow, burning brighter until Marcus had to shield his eyes. Nyxera staggered back, horrified. "No, you can't, you forgot," Kovu snarled, his voice echoing with power. "I'm not just your heir. I'm his son." With a deafening roar, he absorbed her energy, then unleashed it. The blast sent Nyxera flying backwards, her scream cutting off as she vanished into a rift of swirling darkness. Silence. Then Kovu collapsed. Marcus barely caught him, skidding to his knees in the dirt. Hey, look at me." Kovu's scales were dull, his breathing shallow, but his eyes, still that same gold, flickered open. "Told you? I'd pick you," he rasped. Marcus choked out a laugh. Yeah, don't get cocky." Somewhere in the trees, a twig snapped. Marcus tensed, but it was only Lyra limping forward, her rifle discarded. She stared at Kovu, then at Marcus. "What is he?" Marcus tightened his grip on Kovu. "Mine." And for once, Lyra had no comeback. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of dawn. Somewhere, a bird began to sing. The fight was over, but the future? That was just the beginning. Chapter 7. The Hollow Man's scream tore through the cavern as Lyra's sword shattered the last glowing rune. The blue light flickered wildly, shadows thrashing like wounded animals as the ancient magic binding him unraveled. His form twisted, stretching, snapping, flesh and darkness warring against each other. "You fools!" His voice was no longer smooth, but a chorus of shrieks, half human, half something else entirely. "You've doomed yourselves." Kale staggered back, clutching his bleeding side. Yeah, spare us the villain speech." He tossed Lyra a smirk, though his face was pale. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Lyra wiped the sweat from her brow, gripping her sword tighter. "Though we should have charged more for this job?" The Hollow Man lunged, but this time he was solid. Mortal. Her blade met his ribs with a satisfying crunch. Black ichor sprayed as he howled, stumbling back. "You cannot kill me. I am a pain in my ass," Lyra interrupted, driving her knee into his gut. He doubled over just in time for Kale's dagger to sink into his throat. The Hollow Man gurgled, clawing at the wound as his body began to dissolve. Flesh crumbling like rotten wood, shadows scattering like smoke in the wind. Within seconds, all that remained was a pile of ash and the faint, fading echo of his screams. Silence. Then, with a groan, the cavern started shaking. Rocks tumbled from the ceiling as the walls cracked. Kale grabbed Lyra's arm. "Oh, you gotta be joking, run." They bolted for the exit, dodging falling debris as the tunnel collapsed behind them. Sunlight blinded them as they burst out, rolling onto the grass just as the entrance sealed itself with a final, thunderous crash. For a long moment, they just lay there, gasping. Then Kale started laughing, weak but genuine. "We're alive." Lyra sat up, wincing at her bruises. Barely. She eyed the now barren marsh. No more mist, no more creeping shadows. Just peace. Kale nudged her shoulder. "Admit it. You'd miss this if it were over." She shoved him away, but there was no heat in it. "Shut up." A shout came from the distance. The townsfolk were approaching, led by a very confused-looking deputy. "Lyra? Kale? What in the seven hells happened? Where's the mayor?" Lyra exchanged a glance with Kale. Then, in perfect unison, he resigned. As the villagers erupted into chaos, Kale leaned in.